We are live now, so let's try one more time. Guys, sorry for this interruption. We're going to try again to live stream this video. If the connection breaks down again, I'm just gonna post the recording of our chat with Nicky and Robert. So I have, I'll quickly introduce you guys again. We have here today Nicky Hockly and Robert Martinez, and they are from the Consultants E. The Consultants E run online courses for English teachers. And today we're talking about Robert and Nicky's experiences of teaching online. So my first question was for Nicky. Nicky started teaching online very long ago, in 1996. And so I asked Nicky, why did she decide to do that? Because it was quite a revolutionary decision at the time. So Nicky, tell us, why did you, sorry, you'll have to repeat a little bit of what you already said, but hopefully now I'll be able to concentrate more. So tell us, please, the beginning of your story.
Okay, so I was training, and in 1997 I started with one of the first online MA programs in terms of special universities. It was English, it was a semester, the only was Messenger, and too young to remember.
I've never really.
Yeah, it was my program. That was the only time. So I remember her holding tutorial real time with my MA students because I was the academic director. I was also teaching on the program, and we would be having these text chats, we not really go into much detail. That's all that was possible. And then for about 6 years of working on this online MA, I mean, I sort of learned to teach online by doing it. It was the only way. Structuring tasks for forum discussions and so on. That wasn't so difficult because I come from a teaching and a training background. For me, the challenge really at the beginning was the technology. There was nobody to teach me, nobody to train me, and I just sort of, got thrown in, and I learned as I went along. And I've always actually thought that the technology is not that difficult to learn. I'm sure many people who are teaching online at the moment, they've had to teach online. It's not that difficult to use a video conferencing program. You click some buttons and you're fine. I think what's difficult is to be a good teacher. So
yeah, right.
I always think if I manage to do it, hey, anybody can do it. But that's the story.
I think this is very reassuring to hear for some of the teachers who are worried about the fact that they don't know technology very well. And yeah, so what you said, I agree with that completely. Okay, and so, right, maybe next question is to Robert. Robert, unlike Nicky, you have recently moved to teaching online. Is that right? At least with your students, yeah? So you moderate online courses and you tutor online courses, but you didn't teach students online up until this point, right?
Yeah, partially. I had some experience of teaching online courses, but it was mostly sporadic because we were trying to push them, but mainstream meant people wanted to go to school. So it was never like now that everything is online.
Yeah, right.
Now, fully online, I've been teaching fully online for almost 8 weeks now, since we moved fully online. And I can say that for me and for most people, I think that around me, I don't know if it is contagious. We're really happy for, obviously there are some things that don't work at the beginning and then you feel a little bit stressed because the learning curve is really steep. And as Nicky said, if you're a good the important thing is being a good teacher, not so much the technology. So I think that that's really important, that you are confident that, okay, well, it's just a different medium, but if you love what you do and if you want to be there with your students, then that's have the work done.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that in terms of teaching adults, it seems to me, but with kids or with teens, what are the ages that you work with? Because I think that, if you're a good teacher and you know how to, how to go about teaching a class of for example, very young learners, that's one thing. But when you have to do that online, for me, I don't work with kids a lot these days, but yeah, that's why it seems like rocket science to me.
Right. Well,
So what
I
are the
was,
ages that you work with?
I had 6 different classes from 6 to 8, then 10 to 12, then 13 to 14, up to 3 weeks ago, because I'm director of studies. And so I was covering also for a teacher. Now I have only a group of teenagers. Now I would say with teenagers and with younger learners, for me, really the only new thing is the medium. I was in the classroom with them. Now they are on the other side of the screen. But everything else, even with young learners, is still the same. I'm still very jumpy, and I still do lots of things with them in the class, in the online class. Obviously, you would, for example, with the 6 to 8-year-olds that I had for a while, then I would still use materials like normal materials. I was trying to adapt to what they have, because we need to understand that they're not going to be able to interact. And many of them are still getting to grips with literacy. So they're not going to be very tech savvy. They're not going to be able to type. So you're still doing lots of things. I would, like stand up with them and say, okay, everybody, so push the top of the screen, push the sides of the screen, do things with them in the same way. Try and make it as natural as possible. That's why I was saying before, for those teachers who are feeling a little bit like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yes, obviously it's going to be a little bit stressful, because we need to acquire new skills, especially if you're not used to them. But if you love what you do, that love is going to transpire. And if the important thing is to get to know that platform you're going to be using, and try little by little, because I think teachers mainly think that they have to start using 10,000 tools and quizzes and websites and things, and I think that's not really necessary.
Yeah, I think that the stress comes from the fact that you have to now get yourself acquainted with millions of different tools, and teachers simply don't have time for that. We know that teachers are usually very busy. Yes, Nicky?
Yeah, I tell you what, isn't it great you can put your hand up in an online class? I just wanted to add to what Robert said. I'm writing a position paper at the moment for a publisher about online teaching, which will be freely available. I can send you the link tomorrow to
Thank you.
And as part of that, there's a section on teaching younger learners, and I've been speaking to a lot of teachers who are teaching English, like Robert is, with much younger learners as well. And what they suggest really is it's a kind of a common theme. And that is, as Robert said, it's not a matter of learning how to use this and that and all these fancy new technology tools, especially if you're not confident with them. Rather, a lot of young learner teachers are liaising with the parents, because they have to, of course. And the parents are, using the websites and the games and that sort of materials and stuff at home. And then the teachers are meeting up with their students, but for very short periods of time. So the younger the students, the shorter, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not an hour. Not an hour with young kids. That is just not going to work. It's got to be.
You mean like the lesson should be around 20 minutes if it's an online lesson?
Yeah, very short, regular periods of time, maybe once a day, once every 2 days. Of course, the parents are always right there. And then doing the kinds of activities, the teacher-led activities that you would do in a face-to-face classroom, like Robert just demonstrated. So, for example, mime, songs, learning new songs together. You would do that in a class. Story time. Telling a little story, having a picture book, showing the picture book, doing the choral repetition bits that you will do in a storytelling session with very young learners. Mime activities like, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or Simon Says is another very popular game. Getting students to draw. So doing even like a picture dictation. So, we're going to draw a monster. Your monster has green eyes. Everybody has to use a green pen, and then they have to show it. So
show it into the camera.
Different. Yeah, it's not that different. It's just that keeping those synchronous sessions are very, very short, and you adapt it to the kinds of activities that actually can work with the medium. That's certainly based on what I'm hearing from young learner teachers.
So do you think, you said that the lesson should be around 20 minutes. Do you think, well, like if kids had like 3 lessons a week and the lessons were like 1 hour, should it be replaced with 3 lessons, with 3 20-minute lessons? Or
Yes,
do
I
you,
think the younger the students, I think teenagers, it's not a problem to do an hour. But if you're teaching 6-year-olds an hour sitting in front of a screen,
Mhm.
forget it. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you are a totally talented and brilliant performer and
Mhm.
you're, dancing around the room, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to keep them engaged. And even if you are dancing around the room, it's pretty unlikely. So,
Mhm.
the younger the age group, the lower the attention, or the shorter the
That's
attention
true.
span.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, you wanted to add something there?
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. For example, where I work, we have our lessons with the younger ones are 40 to 45 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
they're already a stretch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also because as Nicky was saying, you need to liaise closely with parents, and very often in lockdown, for example, as a director of studies, I have to speak to parents very often. Many of them are already working at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot of liaison. That's why that connection with parents, I think, is even more important now that we're teaching online.
Mm-hmm. So now that the kids are at home, can their parents be present in the lesson? I mean,
Very often they are too present. So
too
that's why
present.
it is so important. I mean, it has both pros and cons, because
Mm-hmm.
we need to understand that very big families or many families will not be able to have a kid in one room and then
Yeah.
in another room, and
Yeah.
everybody needs to use very similar rooms. So something we've encountered, and I've seen in some of my lessons, is that there would be too much background noise, or other siblings jumping or doing things. So it's very important to communicate with parents from the beginning, so that they know that we understand what the situation is like, but that it will be necessary, at least for those 40 minutes, 45 minutes, or if it is a longer lesson, for example, like my teenagers, we have 1 hour and 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Twice a week,
Mm-hmm.
then that they understand that if possible, that you need a little bit of peace and quiet
Yeah. Yeah.
for that lesson. Otherwise, it can be quite challenging for the teacher.
Mm-hmm. And do you think in general, being at home, like, does it have more advantages or disadvantages? Because maybe for some kids it can actually be good for them. Like it's more, I don't know, it's a safer environment on the one hand. Is that?
Well, I would like to say something that really caused an impression, and is something that a psychologist said when they started the lockdown here in Spain, and it is that I feel very proud to be a teacher, because online, being able to continue with those lessons, it is very useful socially. We play a very important social role, because we help in keeping those routines that students and families are used to keep going to school. For example, the schools where we live in the area, they stop lessons completely and they just send handouts to the students with
Mm-hmm.
homework to complete. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. We started exactly the same. The day after that the government said lockdown, we had been preparing for it. So we went fully online, not disruption. The only difference was that we were not in the classroom, but we were online. So I think that there are lots of benefits. It's true. I've seen this in our teachers here. Initially there was a lot of stress because it's too much to learn so quickly, especially if you're not used to that. But with the right amount of training, with the right attitude, I think the attitude is the most important thing. Just be positive, see it as an opportunity, see the glass half full. I'm going to learn so much. This is, I'm going to be able to acquire new skills, share with other people, cry with other people. Why not? Right, Nicky?
Yes, sounds good. And Nicky, maybe a question for you. So you run online courses for teachers. So what do you think, would you, like now, if a teacher has never taught online, what's the best way to go around it? Where do you start? Do you do an online course, or do you first, I don't know, talk to your colleagues, read something? So what if I know nothing about that? So what are the most important things to learn first? Yeah, if a teacher doesn't have much time, he needs to start soon, or, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, of course, we would all like to have the luxury of some, very thorough training before this all happens, but
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't been the case, unfortunately, for many teachers, or fortunately, actually, they've just been thrown into it. And in fact, from what I've seen, teachers have coped amazingly well, as Robert said. Even, not working in a context like Robert's where they have a lot of support, teachers who've had no support have managed to manage extremely well because they're teachers, and that's what we
Yeah.
do well. We teach and we know how to do that. We know our students
Stress resistant.
it's a matter of finding that technology. So my advice would be, and it's probably advice too late because we've, here in Spain, we're almost 2 months into a lockdown, is to start with what you feel comfortable with. So in some scenarios, as Robert said, the teachers are not being asked to give live lessons like Robert is. They're just being asked to send handouts and so on. So using tools that you're familiar with, email, set up email chains with your students. So rather than me as a teacher, here's another handout, PDF, print it out, do it, send it back to me. We are teachers and we're language teachers, and we know that communication and collaboration are absolutely essential as part of language learning. So let's set up tasks that allow for communication and collaboration. And one example is this idea of an email chain where you just send a list of names by email. We've got John, Mary, Michael, Sue, etc. And the students then you start a story yourself with a paragraph, which is right level for the students, and then they have to continue the chain story and send it to the people. Last person on the list sends it back to you. You send it around the group and then get everybody to correct it. And then they send that correction to you. So you can get some mileage out of a very, very simple technology, a very simple task, but you're getting the students to do it. It's not you coming up with yet another worksheet, fill in the verbs and sending it off. You're trying to make it a little bit more fun and creative. So that's a very simple example. And then integrating synchronous real-time sessions using something like Zoom, which everybody is familiar with, or if not, something like Google Meet, which is a simpler platform to use, and just making sure that you do connect with your students in real time. Again, and of course, if you do have time for training, then I would highly recommend that you do our courses. We have one on teaching live online, one on e-moderation, and Robert is one of our tutors. So, but often teachers won't have that time or that luxury at the moment. On the other hand, as Robert said, this is a fantastic opportunity for teachers to build up skill sets that are going to be useful for them in the future, because this is not going away. Online teaching, we may go back to normal in inverted commas after the outbreak, but online learning is only getting bigger. So it's something that's going to be in every teacher's future to a certain extent.
Yeah, besides, when you're doing an online course, you're not just learning what's there, you're also looking at how it's carried out, and you can implement some things in your lessons as well. So beneficial from these 2 points of view. Right. So you said that, go back to normal. Do you think we will ever go back to normal? Because some people say that life is never going to be the same. What do you think is the future of online learning? I'm not even saying learning in general, because maybe now it has become clear that, as you're saying, we're going to do more and more stuff online. But how is it going to develop?
I think, online learning has been developing since I started in 1997, where it really was like the lunatic fringe back in those days. It's mainstream now. All universities, or almost all, will have some sort of online or blended program. For example, the United States, in secondary schools, versions of online and blended learning are becoming more and more common. So this has been accelerating over the last sort of 20 years, and especially the last 5 or 10 years. I think it will continue to do so. On the other hand, I certainly don't think it's going to replace face-to-face teaching. So people say that, when we go back to normal, we'll never go back to normal. No, I think we probably will in terms of schooling, because schooling is not just about going, learning language or learning history or learning geography or learning maths. It has a very important socializing role in society. So that is not going to go away. Bricks and mortar schools are more than learning. So I think those will stay. But I could see that as teachers become more accepting of online learning and they can see the benefits of it when it's well done, there's no reason why you shouldn't start to integrate a little bit more of that into your daily sort of teaching. But I don't think it's going to be some kind of massive change. Everything's suddenly going to be online, from next month. I think that's very unlikely. Change is slow often, and education is extremely slow. So I think we can see, a slightly accelerated development with online learning. It's not going away, but I don't think it's going to be a massive revolution. I think this is a period of time in which everybody's freaking out and managing, and then it'll slow down again. That's my view. I don't know what you think, Robert.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been thinking a lot about that lately because they said on TV, I think it was yesterday, I saw the Minister of Education here saying that they're thinking of, in the second phase, allowing half the students to go back, which means have the class in the classroom and the other half attending the same lesson via online. Synchronously. So we had been discussing that where I work, and I think that's probably what's going to happen now. And then when things go back to normal, we're social beings, and although we are able to socialize online, I think human beings need that proximity. So I totally agree with Nicky. I don't think schools are just going to go away, or or learning is going to be replaced by online learning. It's just becoming more, because of the circumstances, it's being normalized, to use the right term.
I see. Thanks. So Robert, like during these, so you said you've been teaching for 8 weeks. Have you had any insights, or what are your, I don't know, conclusions, maybe something you can share, something that you have already understood, like this works, this doesn't, this is perfect, or this is easier to do online than it was offline, or vice versa. Can you share?
Absolutely. I would say, first of all, as Nicky said from the beginning, we are teachers. And I think that it is very important. I would say the main principles for teaching young learners, and young learners, I mean the younger ones or the older ones in teens, are the same whether you're face-to-face or online, with a few differences. And those are, you need to be yourself. You need to be informed. So if you're going to be teaching young learners and you haven't, start reading, do a course on teaching young learners. If you are going to be teaching teenagers and you have no experience, just the same way you would approach most things. You're going to be doing it for the first time, start reading, talk to colleagues, ask for support, find a course. If you're going to be using a platform, get to know the platform. I think it's very, very important that you, just as in a face-to-face classroom, you show that you love being there. You love being there, because students can sense that. If I'm miserable online, I'm going to be miserable face-to-face. And students can see that. So we need to really build rapport. Now, the difference is that online, because they're on the other side of the screen, I need to make sure that I am articulating a little more, especially for the lower levels, that I'm, that they can see me, that they need to be able to see that I'm there for them and that I want to be there. If students are misbehaving, well, it's just the same way you would deal with them in the classroom. Have clear rules, clear routines, praise them where necessary, make sure that you prepare your lessons. I'm sure Nicky will agree with me. I've been teaching for 25 years and I still prepare my lessons or my workshops. I still have clear learning outcomes. So there's nothing new really when you move online other than the medium. And then when you become comfortable, then you start maybe introducing this tool because you can see that it will help your students with something, not just because it's the bells and whistles and you're going to keep them busy or entertained. Education is not edutainment. Those are two different things, I think.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. I also wanted to add, I think that maybe it would be good for teachers to accept the fact that there are going to be some failures at the beginning, because this is something new. So perhaps we just have to accept that. And then, yeah, maybe it's a good idea to start small, like in business, they use MVP, you know, minimal viable product. Yeah.
I was
And
just going to say, you just made me think of failure. It's part of the learning process.
yeah,
And fail, I like something that I saw. Fail stands for first attempt in learning. So
yeah,
I think
heard of,
it's the attitude. You know, I've had some teachers initially who were really stressed out and, oh, I've always been a technophobe, apart from sending emails and doing things, you know, really people in
a lot of
tears.
teachers are like that.
And it's just like, okay, well, let's start by changing the attitude. It's just a learning process. It's not necessarily negative. What can we learn from what is not working? I think that's what really turns things around.
Right, great attitude. Um, yeah, Nikki, I don't know. I was also thinking about the fact that many teachers might be afraid of moving online because of, yeah, I was thinking about myself, but maybe other people can relate. It's the fact that you are in different, so you are not in one room. It's kind of this feeling that you're out of control a little bit. Um, have you ever, can you relate to that? And I don't know,
I
Nikki, have
suppose
you ever?
anything that's out of your comfort zone in a way is
Mm-hmm.
a challenge. For me, I mean, I've been online, really 100% online since 1997. So I've kind of forgotten. I do face-to-face training, of course, and face-to-face workshops, but I work online. So for me, this is the most familiar medium. And I think it can be as engaging as face-to-face. If you, as Robert said, prepare your classes and you have well-designed classes. And a well-designed class for online is in many ways similar to a well-designed class face-to-face, because the fear of failure, well, I mean, are all your face-to-face classes so fabulously brilliant and successful?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe not all the time, right? And the same thing is going to happen online. There's a couple of basic principles, and Robert outlined some of them earlier, and I would add also, you know, variety, because
Mm-hmm.
any online lesson, if I'm doing it like this through Zoom with students, if it's just me talking, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be engaging. But I would argue that that is also not engaging face to face.
Yeah,
So,
true.
you know, face to face, we design these little activities and we put them in pairs and we change activities regularly to keep pace in the lesson. If we're using a video conferencing platform like Zoom, for example, we can put people into breakout rooms, which means they can do, and I can go around as a teacher to these breakout rooms and make sure that they're on task as I would walk around the classroom and make sure that the students are, you know, of course they're in pairs and they are at the same time talking about the weekend, but, you know, as long as they're getting the task done. So there's a lot of principles that we can take from face to face. And that, I think, is the thing for teachers to hold on to. We are teachers. We know how to teach. We're just doing it in a slightly different medium, and we need to just get used to the medium. I reckon, it would be interesting to know, but teachers who are watching this or watching the recording, you know, I bet 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, they were completely freaking out and losing it.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that they are freaking out a lot less now, that they
Right.
have had all of this time to try things out and to get more confident. And if they, individual teachers, look back on their own learning curve over these last few weeks, it will have been tremendous. And they will have learned a lot. And there's something there to be very, very proud of, I think.
Right. And maybe we should be thankful to what is happening, like to treat this as an opportunity, because otherwise maybe like many teachers wouldn't have took up a new way of teaching. Okay, and so we agreed that methodology is very important when teaching online, and of course we need to know a little bit about technology, but methodology goes first. So Nicky, tell our listeners about your course, Teaching Live Online. What is the ratio of methodology, technology? Who is the course for? Um,
Okay, so the course is called Teaching Live Online,
mm-hmm.
offered through the consultancy, which is my and Gavin Dudney's company. We've been running it for probably about 3 years now, and essentially it's aimed at English language teachers, although in fact The methodology, it's a very hands-on course. It's applicable to any subject area, really, because there's basic principles of methodology and technology behind it. The focus of all of our online courses, I mean, we're teachers, we're trainers, is on methodology. The technology is always secondary. So, for example, on this course, you'll learn to use a number of different video conferencing platforms. At the moment, we're working with a group of teachers from a school in Chile, in South America, and they are using a specific platform. They're using Google Meet. So we're focusing the course on Google Meet for these teachers. So when we have groups of teachers from a specific place, we might focus on one platform, but if it's the public, what we call public course, we focus on a number of platforms so that teachers learn about and become comfortable with. But we look at things like online task design. So how do you design tasks for an online session, a warmer? How do you structure it? How do you finish off? How do you use breakout rooms? What kinds of tasks can you do? How do you motivate and engage your students? There's a lot of hands-on work. So on the online course itself, you're putting into pairs or groups of 3, and you do stuff online. You experiment, you try out. And that's a wonderful opportunity, because the idea is to reflect on, oh, that didn't quite work, hang on a minute, tomorrow, let me try this tool. Oh, what did you, you've got all of that sort of real-time hands-on practice and then reporting back to the group. It's a 3-week or 20-day, 15-hour course. And basically people come out feeling very confident with a range of video conferencing platforms, not just the technology, but the actual, how do you use it effectively to support language learning? How do I design tasks that are effective? How do I put those together into a series of tasks and into a kind of an online course? Robert's actually one of the tutors on the course itself, so he may have something to add about the course as he sees it.
Yes. Well, I really like, as Nicky said, the fact that it is very hands-on.
Yeah, okay.
And also the fact that what we try to do is to make sure that if we're doing a task when moderating the course, we're constantly making the participants think about the task and how it is applicable to their classrooms. It's not just the task, but I think they get the benefit of doing the course, thinking of the task, doing the task themselves, but at the same time, constantly being reminded, how can you take this back to your classroom? Is it applicable? So it's a constant, like loop input. We're talking about learning to teach online while also trying to teach online and
learn
teaching online and the learners. Yes. So for me personally, what really, I really like about the course is that I'm not just a tutor. I always get to learn from the participants as well. So I think I couldn't have a better job. Like you get to do something you like, you're paid for it, and on top of that, you learn from others.
You sound very positive about that. Right. So what's the role of a tutor on the course? How does the course work? Do the participants get some tasks and then they have some feedback sessions with the tutor, or do they have input sessions, like live input sessions, or is it all pre-recorded? I don't know, maybe Nicky, Robert, who wants to?
Let me talk about the design of the course, because I'm the course designer for all of our courses, and they all follow the same pedagogical, all of our courses follow the same pedagogical kind of model, if you like, and that is experiential learning. So you learn by doing. It is the opposite of self-study. It's the opposite of pre-recorded. There's nothing like that. It's very much tasks. From your first task, you're going into, we use a platform called Moodle, which I'm sure many people are familiar with. We use that for the asynchronous forum discussions, watching videos, communicating with, in pairs and small groups. And then we use a range of different video conferencing platforms for the live sessions. But essentially, it's built around collaboration and communication from the beginning. So you're working with pairs on the course, different colleagues, you're working as a whole group, you're working in groups of 3, you're trying stuff out, you're reflecting, you're commenting, and your tutor is there the whole time. There's one important principle of online learning that research has shown to be true, and that is that tutor presence is absolutely essential for online learning to work. If the tutor is not present, and there's a social presence, there's a cognitive presence, if the tutor is not present, then it's difficult for students. I mean, like MOOCs, for example. MOOCs are great, but the completion rate on MOOCs is around 3%, 4%. There's a reason. Our courses are the opposite of MOOCs. They're very small. There's always a maximum of 12 students for one tutor. So it's very hands-on, a lot of interaction and learning by doing. Those are the kind of pedagogical principles. And in terms of what the tutor actually does, well, Robert can share that from what he does on the courses.
Yes, and you know what Nicky said about the role of tutor presence. I think I started with the consultancy as a participant in 2009. I was working for British Council in Singapore when I joined the CERT ICT. And I had always liked technology, but it was only when I did that course that I was like, wow, there's so much you can do. And then I did all the other courses that the consultancy offered because I felt thirsty. And I think that as a tutor, the difference between a good course and a bad course is definitely, obviously the structure and the task and everything, but the tutor can make and break. You know, because if you're there, I'm not saying you have to be there 24/7. That would be unrealistic to expect a tutor to be 24/7. But you are supporting the learners. You're looking at the tasks. You're following them if they are not online. For example, something we do is we check if someone hasn't been online for 24 hours or just a quick email. Hey, is everything okay? 48 hours. Is everything okay? Is there anything you need? How can I help you? With the forums, then following the forums, interacting with them at the right time, not always initially, not always all the time, because that can also be negative. You need to give the participants space to breathe, to reflect, to react, and not feel that the tutor is on top all the time. So I think that definitely that's one of the most successful parts of the course, because that's why I said you learn with them. It's not just like you take a back seat and then you just read what they're saying. Yes, that's wonderful. You are part of the learning as a tutor, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. It sounds really exciting. I hope that I will soon take part in one of the consultants' e-courses. And Nicky, you have generously offered us and all the listeners a 15% discount on the course Teach Live Online, right? So the course starts on the 11th of May, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, you're on mute. I have your slide.
Sorry. Do you want me to share my screen and I can show you?
I can share it. I'm already doing that. So this is what you've sent me, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So 2 courses, right? That are going to start soon.
Right, exactly. Yes. So we have 2 courses that are specifically aimed at supporting teachers who are teaching online at the moment, as most teachers are. The one on the left there is the Teaching Live Online course we've been talking about, which is 15 hours over 3 weeks. And those are the course dates. There's a 15% discount for listeners there with a code if you'd like to use that. And then also on the e-moderation course, which is a 30-hour course over 4 weeks and goes into much more depth about sort of motivating students, assessment online, whole course design, including synchronous and asynchronous, so real-time and not real-time work, tutor skills, tutor roles. The 2 courses actually go very well together. We find that many people start with the Teaching Live Online course, which is focusing on video conferencing, basically, how to teach through video conferencing with the methodology behind that, and then they go on to do the e-moderation course, or they do it the other way around. And those 2 courses sit extremely well together. And after those, I think you've got a really solid skill set to be a very, very competent and effective online language teacher. And again, getting your skill set up and having some sort of certification is always a good idea in terms of future employment.
Will the e-moderation course be suitable for, let's say, teachers who want to develop their own online courses in the future for their students, for example? Is that
That's a good question. It gives you a very sound idea of effective online course design. What we don't cover is things like how to, do the technology behind using a virtual learning environment like Moodle. That's a whole different sort of area. It would take us weeks to do that. But that, again, is not so difficult to acquire. The technology you can acquire fairly easily online yourself through tutorials and so on and so forth.
Right. You need the strategy and the big
exactly,
picture first.
Methodology, design, that sort of stuff. Not the kind of, click here, click edit, bold, not that sort of stuff, no.
Okay, thank you very much. These both courses sound really interesting, and I'm gonna share the links with the subscribers of my page. We had a very interesting discussion. I learned and I got inspired by your attitude to teaching online. I hope that other teachers will also feel that. Thank you for that. I see that unfortunately the live stream failed, but I'm gonna upload this recording and people will watch it a little later. But as we said, it's a learning point. So we learned from things like that. Thank you very much. And I hope that we will maybe meet on one of your online courses, or maybe when everything comes down, maybe meet in Ukraine for a for a face-to-face workshop.
That would be fantastic. Tamara, just to say, what you've been demonstrating here is a really recording this whole thing. So it's so fantastic. That's a wonderful lesson there for teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you for this. Okay, guys, have a good day. I heard that, Robert, you have some lessons today. Yeah, me too. Nicky, what about you? Have some other work to do?
Yes, I'm on a big materials writing project and a consultancy as well. So I'm going to be writing things like reports. That's so interesting.
Okay, let's keep in touch and have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tamara. Bye-bye. Bye.